So welcome to Gemini Star Spiritual Wellness. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you're all doing well. So, in today's video, I'm going to be discussing my experiences with dragons, mermaids, and fairies. So, I wanted to get this video out because I wanted to share with you all of my experiences with these higher dimensional beings, and to let you know that these beings do exist. They're just in higher dimensions that we don't interact with on our lower vibrational frequency right now, but they are there, and they a lot of times have messages for us and watching over us. So I wanted to basically share with you my experiences with them. And this is a good time to do this, because I feel like as more and more of the people of the planet, we start to lift our vibration and get in higher frequency, we're going to start having our own experiences with these beings. And, more and more people are going to start having interactions with them. And so I wanted to, share this information for that reason as well. So I'm going to start with the dragons today, about my experience with dragons. So I it was a couple years ago. I can't remember now. I want to say it was like about 21 or so is when I had this first experience with dragons. And basically, I was like in a vision, I guess you could say. And it's hard to describe it. Vision, trance, that that type of interaction. And the next thing I know, I had about 8 dragons show up in front of me, and they were big. I mean, big and just like what you would expect dragons to look like. And they basically their message was short and sweet, but very much to the point. It very much, made an impression on me, but they just wanted to let me know that, hey, they basically said, we're here, we exist. We are real, but they said that, they're in a higher dimension than we are, so that, we don't see them in our where we are in the third dimensional earth. He says, but they are there and they exist and they're watching over us, and they know what's going on earth and kind of keeping an eye on us. I also found out that they do a lot of work, healing work for humans. They do a lot of clearing out negative energy and negative entities on other dimensional planes. They do a lot of that work as well. And it seems like from what they said that the dragons, they have like individual jobs that they do that they're all kind of responsible for. Like some are tied more to the earth where others are more on a galactic level. So they all kind of have different jobs to do, but they are very wise, and they are very high dimensional. So this vision or this interpretation that we have of dragons on the earth, like going around and, just being destructive and killing people and things like that, that's not really accurate. That's not true. They're portrayed that way, but they're actually very wise and high dimensional, and they have no desire to go around and, destroy things on earth, and be destructive in that way. So that was quite a unique experience. And then a couple years later, I had a more interesting experience. This one was more personal, was like a one-on-one experience with a female dragon, and she was smaller than the ones I saw, that in that first vision that came to me. She was smaller, but she came to me and she told me her name, and she was a gold dragon, and she was more petite, and I could tell that, she was a female because she was a little bit smaller and stuff. But she, basically, I had a connection with this dragon, so I'm not quite sure how we go back together or what the connection was, but there was definitely like we had a strong, loving friendship. So when I was with this dragon, I felt very, very drawn to her and her to me. And we were like, it's like we were best friends, basically. There was this strong, loving bond between us that I could feel. And she was basically like, yes, I'm here, I'm here to, we're together. I'm here to help you. And I remember she let me get on her and basically ride her, a dragon rider, which was really, really cool. That was really cool. And, I haven't seen her since, but I definitely got the feeling that, she kinda watches out for me and watches over me, and that we have some kind of best friend type connection, a loving connection, and we're tied together in some way. So that was quite unique. Her name was quite interesting. I don't think I can pronounce it correctly, so I'm not gonna try. but it was a unique, more of a personal level experience. The other dragons, their message was more for everybody, but my experience with the dragon I had, the second smaller dragon, it was more of a personal, like just me and her, but her and I should say, but it was quite unique, and I was grateful for that. So my next experience I want to talk about is my interaction with mermaids. And this one was quite unexpected because it just kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting, I hadn't been thinking about mermaids, hadn't watched anything on TV about mermaids or read anything about mermaids, but I just remember and I want to say this was well, I want to say it was in 23, so it was a couple years ago, and I do try to journal when I have these experiences. I try to write, I have a journal by my bed. So if I snap out, when I snap out of it, I'll try to write if I can remember to do it right then and there, write the date and then the experience that I had and everything that happened. Because sometimes, I'll forget things if I don't write it down right away. So I want to write down the message right away. So I've been trying to be really good about that when I have these really unique experiences. So the mermaid showed up and they once again I was like in a vision trance type state, and they showed up and they looked a lot different than what we perceived them to look like. So there was probably about, I'd say, 12 of them around me, and there was both male and female mermaids, and they had like long black hair, and they were not like in the movies. They're portrayed as being very like kind of human like, and very, kind of look a lot like us, but that's not what they look like when they came to me. So they had human-like features, like from the torso up, they were human-like, and then from the torso down, they were like a fish, just like we would think them to look like. But their skin was different. It was like their skin looked like, like when you like a whale, that type of skin that a whale has, or those type of fish, kind of a rubbery kind of look to it. So it was like that rubbery type of texture, and their skin was kinda like a bluish green color. So, it was very unique. It was kinda like a mixture of the 2 colors, and I remember their eyes were, like, straight black. Like, they didn't have, any whites to their eyes. It was, like, all black, and they were the same shape as our eyes, and then their nose was a little bit, flatter, and they had, like, gills right here on their face. So they had, like, so they had nose, and then they had, like, little gills that came out on their face like that. So they did look, very fish-like, but, a good cross between human and fish. And, they were telling me now this is quite unique because I don't know much about mermaids, and this was my first experience with them. But they told me that they were the survivors from Atlantis. When Atlantis went into the down into this ocean, that they were the survivors, and they adapted to to an aqua environment. So they went when Atlantis crumbled into the sea, and they went down into the sea, and they basically over time they were able to adjust to an aquatic environment. And they said that, they're very high vibrational because the people of Atlantis were very high vibrational. So they're at a higher vibrational frequency than us. And that they said their message was they do not, want humans to be afraid of them. And so they've been basically their job is to watch over the oceans and to keep, track of the oceans and keep everything running smoothly and protect the oceans and the wildlife in the oceans. They said, they also their job is not just the oceans, but also to protect humans and to help humans, on the planet. And they said that the time is coming where they're no longer gonna be in the shadows from us. They're no longer gonna hide themselves from us and just stay in the oceans, that they're gonna start allowing us to see them and interact with them and become much more visible to us, but they don't want us to be afraid of them. They said that, they're not gonna hurt us, they have no desire to hurt us, and, they're portrayed in movies and a lot of tales as being, of hurting humans and being violent and being something to be afraid of. and they know that, and they said that's not true, that they're not out to hurt us, they don't want to hurt us, that they're actually helping humans and they want to help us. And they said that the time has come now to help humans ascend into the new earth. So the vibration's going up and they know it. And now's the time for them to really help. They're here to help humans make that transition, but also help, I guess, the ocean mammals and everything in the oceans make the transition as well. But they said that's why they're coming forward now, is because it's time to make that transition. And that's why they're no longer going to stay hidden from us, and they're going to be much more visible and much more open to interacting with us moving forward, because they don't because it's time. It's time to help with that transition. So it was quite a unique experience. And when I was standing there listening to them and talking to them, I definitely felt, and you can tell, like with dragons, I felt this way too, where when they're higher vibrational beings and they're full of love and light, you definitely sense that. You can definitely tell the difference between the energy signature of a being on that level than a being that's a negative oriented entity. It's totally different energy signature, so you can feel it right away. And so I felt that with the dragons, love and light and that higher vibrational love energy. And I felt that with the mermaids as well, that higher level vibrational frequency. And I knew that what they were telling me was true. I could feel it. And it was just a nice conversation. And I assumed they were telling me because they wanted me to let other people know, so that people aren't afraid of them when they do start coming out more. So that was quite a unique experience. And it was just very pleasant. And then they were gone, but it was just a unique little message. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Cause I've never had an interaction with mermaids before. So I thought that was, pretty unique. And they didn't tell me their names or anything. Like I said, there was about a group of 12 of them. But they didn't say, like, they didn't introduce themselves by name or anything. So it was just me talking to a group of them. But it was quite unique. And I was grateful for that message. And, I was like, okay, well, I'll let people know. Basically, I'll spread the word. And that's what I'm doing now. So the next group I want to talk about is fairies. So I was always, I always liked fairies. I thought they were cool. As a little girl, I was always fascinated by fairies. And even now, I think they're cool, but I've never really had any interactions with them that I could up until this point. So I remember this distinctively. January of 2024, I had an interaction, or an with interaction vision type situation with a fairy. And she was just, the best way. I mean, the love and light coming off of her was just so intense. I mean, it was really intense. And when she first appeared to me, she showed up in front of me, and I guess the best way to describe it is she was a glowing floating head. And I know that sounds weird, but I couldn't see the rest of her body yet. I just saw this glowing like head, and she was real bright like the sun, real bright and glowing, and it was just a little head floating in front of me. And she looked like what you would think a grandmother would look like. She had her hair pulled back into like a little bun, and she had white hair, and she had the cutest face. Like, she had these adorable cheeks on her, and she just had this very like loving grandma type face. And she was just adorable. I mean, it's the best way to describe it. And she showed up in front of me, and I was like, "Hi," and she's like, "Hi." It's just, I know this sounds crazy as I'm explaining it, but it was just so unique. And then the next thing I know, it's kind of like her little head came into my head. I guess it's kind of like we merged energy fields. And then I could feel it. Like, I could feel her there. Like, I felt like it felt like she was inside my head, is the best way to describe it. It was really weird. And she starts talking to me, and she's like, yeah, she's like, I just wanted to come visit you today because, you've been kind of down lately, and I wanted to come, cheer you up. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, I just want to let you know that everything's going to be okay, and everything's going to work out. And I was like, okay, so let me get this right. You're visiting me because you could tell I've been kinda down and, a little in the dumps lately." And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, and I repeated back to her, "Everything's gonna be okay and everything's gonna work out." She's like, "Yeah, that's right." And I asked her what her name was because I never seen her before. This was my first interaction, and she told me her name, but honestly, I can't pronounce it. It was like 4 words. So it was it's a long name. And then as she's talking to me, then it's kinda like she pulls back out of me, out of, like, out of my energy field or out of my head, and I saw her standing there, and now I could see her whole body, and she was maybe about 2 foot tall, and she was floating, like, in front of me, 2 foot tall, and she had this little pretty red dress on. And she's like, "Yeah, that's right." And, we're talking back and forth. She's like, "Well, I have to go." She goes, "I have somebody else I need to talk to that I need to go visit." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then she's like, "Bye." And I'm like, "Bye." She just disappeared. But it was the cutest experience. I mean, I don't know how else, she was just so adorable. And the whole time, I was like, I just felt that love with her. Once again, like with the same with the mermaids and dragons. It was kind of like this total, like, unconditional love coming off of her, this total love light energy. And it was just a wonderful feeling. But it was like, wow, she knew I was kind of down in the dumps, and she came to tell me it's going to be okay, everything's going to work out, and cheer me up. And then she moved on to somebody else. Like somebody else, I need to go talk to somebody else, and they need me, and she leaves. But it just shows you that they're watching, even though we don't see them, in our day-to-day life very much, but they're there. Like, they're there watching over us in another dimension, in a higher dimension. And I could tell she was a higher dimensional being just by her energy signature. But they're watching over us, the dragons, the mermaids, the fairies. I mean, they're there, they're watching over us, and they're protecting us, and they're helping guide us. I mean, she showed up to basically cheer me up and tell me everything's gonna be okay. And that it really, like, that made me feel so good. It was like that visitation, even though it was just a few minutes, it was like, wow, that's so cool. Like, that's definitely something that I treasured, having that connection and having that experience. And I felt the same way about the dragon experiences and the mermaids. It's like it's just so unique, and it's just like, wow, it's so cool to have that interaction with them and to realize that they're really there to help us and help guide us. And it's not like we're in this alone. We're not on this earth alone going through this transition into the new earth all by ourselves, just out there, just floundering. We've got all these other high vibrational beings watching over us and protecting us and helping us on this path. Because they know that we don't remember who we were before we came to earth. They don't remember who we really are and our potential, and that we're sovereign beings, sovereign divine beings of God. Like, they know that we don't remember that, right? That we don't have an idea of, like, I mean, it's not in our remembrance at this moment. And they know that. So they're here to try to help guide us to make good decisions, to help us, transition, help us, raise our vibration. So that was just so unique. And I just thought that was such, cool experiences. And so after the fairy lady, I call her fairy godmother because that's what she she looked like that. And then I did some research after that experience, and I found out that there is like a fairy godmother group of fairies, and they're very ancient beings and very high vibrational. And it was when I read the description after when I was doing this research, I'm like, "Oh, that's the fairy godmother that I saw, like, that's who she is." I could tell right away that that's what, type of fairy she was. And, ancient, very high vibrational. I mean, like I said, her little face, like, her little head was glowing like the sun, and I could feel that high vibration coming off of her. So it was just very unique. And I wanted to do this video just to let you know their messages, but also to let you know that they're there for us and they're there for you, and they're watching over us and they're guiding us and helping protect us. And they are there even though we don't see them in our day-to-day 3D life here on earth. They are very much there. They're just in the higher dimensions, taking care of us and watching over us. And so I just, I thought those were some unique experiences, and I'm grateful for them. And I'll let you all know in the future if I have some more experiences like this. And I do have experience like this pretty regularly. But these are the three that really, were really fundamental to me over the last couple years that I wanted to share. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you liked my experiences and what you learned about them. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.